Prettier Tits, the bird, get more help from their partners. Paper by Christy Wilcox, presentation by Katie Fitton, Kelly Gamble, and Jamie Punyarthi. The paper focuses on two main aspects, natural selection and the differential allocation hypothesis. Natural selection is based off of courtship before organisms mate. The strongest, healthier organisms survive and pass along their genes to newer generations. For the tits, this is exemplified in their appearance. The more vibrant their feather colors are, the healthier they're seen as. Differential allocation hypothesis focuses on offspring after they're born. This concept involves both the mother and the father birds. It inquires if the parents putting more effort into raising their offspring is worth it if one of the parents has traits that are seen as unhealthy and therefore the offspring don't have a high chance of survival. So how did the scientists investigate these biological concepts when applied to the birds? They wanted to test the vibrancy of their feathers. The treatment was used as a UV-blocking chemical in order to dull the brightness of the feathers. This chemical was added with oil from ducks and rubbed on the female's feathers. The controls used were covered with the oil without the chemicals added. The scientists wanted to measure how both the females and the males responded to the feather dullness based on how they cared for their offspring.
From this experimentation, it was found that the UV-reduced females showed no difference in their feeding habits, but the males with UV-reduced females for mates made less foraging trips to feed their offspring. Therefore, overall the chicks were negatively affected because they were receiving less food from their father and no additional food from their mother. While the male invested less effort in feeding the offspring, he still maintained the same level of investment in protecting the nest from predators. Here is a graph showing the results of the experiment as the number of feeding trips for both males and females with regards to UV reflectance of the females. As you can see, the number of feeding trips is less for males with less attractive females as partners, but the female feeding trip stays the same for both. Similar experiments have been performed in analyzing differential allocation hypothesis in blue tits. The other experiments analyze the female response when male UV coloration is reduced. The females had the same response in that they provisioned less food for the offspring, but contributed less to nest defense as well. However, when females reduced their number of feeding trips due to male reduced UV coloration, the males fed the chicks at a higher rate to make up for it. This resulted in no total feeding difference of the chicks.
So in conclusion, we can see that the differential allocation hypothesis and natural selection is exemplified in this study. The less prettier or brighter the mother bird is, the more likely the male bird is to neglect from his paternal duties, such that they bring in fewer amounts of food and lower quality food to their offspring. This shows that physical mate qualities lead to reproduction-related sacrifices. In essence, because the prettier offspring get better resources, they are more likely to survive. Furthermore, this exhibits that natural selection will favor more attractive tits and offspring of unattractive tits will be at an evolutionary disadvantage. So what concepts does this study relate to that we've learned in bio 1520? Well, let's think back to genetic variation. Preferring a certain type of physicality or trait and choosing to constantly mate with said type can lead to a decrease in genetic diversity. However, that being said, let's look at the good genes hypothesis. The good genes hypothesis states that the traits that females look at when selecting mates are honest indicators of the male's ability to pass on genes that will increase the offspring's survival or reproductive success. So if that's true, then that's evolutionary beneficial for the offspring. So a good thing to think about is where do we draw the line between these two concepts? Another concept to think about is the relationship between reproduction and evolution. The cost of sacrificing reproductive value is due to the benefit of the offspring's survival. The Fisher principle shows that more work is put into prettier offspring, but survival pays off, whereas less work is put into uglier offspring, and survival falls short. So to end, let's consider human application. Anthropologists say that only 1 in 6 of human societies enforce monogamy as a rule. So if humans can be polygamous, like the blue tits, then can't the differential allocation hypothesis apply to us too?